My name is Michael. I met my wife Amanda through a friend's introduction. She was cheerful and sociable, and we immediately hit it off when we first met. As we went out for meals a few times, I started to have feelings for Amanda and began dating her. After dating for about 2 years, we both started thinking about marriage, began living together, and registered our marriage the following year. We had a grand wedding, thinking it's a once-in-a-lifetime event. Our mutual friends performed some entertaining acts, making the ceremony memorable. Married life was pure happiness. We both worked, but Amanda's job did require much overtime, so she always came home first and prepared dinner for us. "Michael, welcome home. Today's dinner is pork cutlet." Knowing that I loved meat, Amanda cooked meat dishes 3 times a week, considering a balanced diet. All of Amanda's homemade meals were delicious, and I truly felt lucky to have her as my wife. That is, until that time. It happened one day, almost 3 years into our marriage. I started to notice that something was off with Amanda. She no longer cooked dinner and waited for me, and she often went out after work, leaving me alone at home. Previously, even when I came home late from work, there would be a homemade meal on the table, but now it was mostly frozen food or supermarket dishes, which made me feel somewhat lonely. However, Amanda also worked, and I was busy at work, making it hard for us to spend time together. I told myself that she probably wanted her own time while I was working overtime, and I didn't consider her feelings enough. This went on for about 2 months, and I finally decided that I needed to change something. As my work had calmed down, I took some paid leave and planned to go to a hot spring with Amanda. When I came home, Amanda was lying on the sofa reading a fashion magazine. I hadn't heard her say welcome home recently. "Amanda, I took some time off work, the week after next. How about we go to a hot spring and relax together?" Without taking her eyes off of the magazine, Amanda replied, "No, I don't feel like it." I couldn't understand her response and was momentarily at a loss for words, because I had researched various accommodations and nearby restaurants, planning to present her with a travel plan. "Hey, I've been so busy lately that I couldn't pay attention to you, right? I thought you might be lonely without me, so I wanted us to go to the hot spring together and spend some quality time together." I thought Amanda would also be unhappy with our current situation. I wanted to create some time for us and rebuild our good relationship. However, Amanda's response didn't change. "It's totally fine the way it is now. Even if you're not around, I have things to do. Don't worry about it." In the end, her gaze remained fixed on the magazine. I couldn't figure out why Amanda would act this way, and I went to sleep that night with a heavy heart. I didn't sleep well, and the next morning I left the house with an awkward atmosphere between us. But since I couldn't focus on work, I decided to consult a coworker during lunch break. "Hey, can I talk to you for a bit? It's not really a fight, but I had this thing with my wife yesterday. Could she be cheating on you? I mean, you don't have any other clear reasons, right? I can't think of any other reason for her to suddenly become so cold." Cheating. The word echoed heavily in my mind. I never thought that this could happen to Amanda, but once a third party said that she was cheating, my suspicion grew, and my health started to deteriorate. That day, I couldn't focus on my work and decided to leave early. When I got home, I went straight to the bedroom, took off only my suit jacket without changing into my home clothes, and collapsed onto the bed. There was still some time before Amanda would come home. I decided to sleep until then, and felt a little more at ease in the cool, dimly lit room with my eyes closed. Because I hadn't slept well the night before, I quickly became drowsy and was almost half asleep when I heard the front door close, and the sound of a woman's laughter, and multiple people entering the house. I woke up and listened carefully to the noises. I could tell the voice was Amanda's. At first, I thought she had come home, but when I heard an unfamiliar male voice, my suspicion of her cheating grew. I could hear footsteps approaching the bedroom where I was, and my heart raced rapidly. No! Amanda said that while opening the bedroom door. She hadn't expected me to be there and looked surprised for a moment, but then spoke in a mocking tone. Oh, Michael, why are you here? I wasn't feeling well, so I left work early and went to bed. Weren't you supposed to be at work, Amanda? I took a paid day off and went out. Amanda said that without showing any concern for my health, and glanced at the tall man standing behind her with his arm around her shoulder. You went out. I wanted to tell the man not to touch my wife, but I felt nauseous and had a headache, so I could only say that weakly. Well, you already know, right? I'm cheating on you with this guy, and it's all your fault, so I won't apologize. Amanda stood defiantly, with her arms crossed, and said that to me. I couldn't believe she admitted to cheating so easily, and I was just confused. Stop making that face now. You've ignored me for so long. Scott treats me like a woman, and being with him heals my heart. He's sensitive to current trends since he's a company president, and he's always exciting and fun. I recognized the man's face that Amanda praised. Then it clicked when she mentioned he was a company president. President of XYZ company? The man standing there was the president of a client company I was working with. He had become famous in the industry after starting his business in his 20s. I had visited his company for business and exchanged business cards with him. Why? I asked Amanda. Like I said earlier, that's why, but I don't mind getting a divorce. Hearing the word divorce, I wanted to stop Amanda, but she tried to leave the room with Scott. Hey, are you okay with this? Just ending your marriage so easily? But Amanda said, it doesn't matter anymore, and tried to take him with her. Well, I'll make sure Amanda's happy, so don't worry. Scott flashed a refreshing smile at me and left the room with Amanda. After that, I got a divorce and received alimony, but I became mentally ill and had to take a leave of absence from work for a while. The reason for Amanda cheating was that I prioritized my job and couldn't spend time with her. Amanda started hanging out at bars alone to kill time, where she met Scott. Amanda had a personality that made it easy to get along with people she just met, so it didn't take long for her to get close to Scott. During my time off work, a colleague I had consulted about the cheating before contacted me and told me that Scott's company, which was a client, had withdrawn from New York due to a headquarters relocation. With this, even if I returned to work, there would be no chance of dealing with Scott's company, and I felt a little relieved. Several years passed since those hellish days, and I managed to recover mentally. By a twist of fate, I met a wonderful woman and decided to remarry. I had changed jobs and moved to a rural area, but it was a more comfortable town, with abundant nature compared to the city. My married life was going well, and I was living a peaceful life. But I ended up getting involved in another incident. On a day off, I was out alone, and a police officer called my name and stopped me. Of course, I had no idea I had done anything wrong, but I had a bad feeling, so I decided to go to the police station. When I arrived at the police station and was taken to a room, there was my ex-wife, Amanda, waiting for me. As soon as Amanda saw my face, she started yelling excitingly. Aha, this guy, officer, this guy, he's the stalker. He's been following me around. It's so creepy. Huh? Stalker? What are you talking about? How shameless. There's a limit to how much you can harass someone after breaking up. I couldn't digest what Amanda was saying and the situation, so I asked for an explanation. But Amanda just kept accusing me, and I couldn't see the main point of the story. Then a police officer brought in a man. It was Scott. Hey, I heard from Amanda that you've been quite persistent. It's been years since the divorce. Do you still have feelings for her? I didn't want to hear that from the person who caused the divorce. but I asked the police officer who brought Scott in to explain the situation. It turned out that Amanda had been stalked by someone for a long time, and she had reported me to the police because the stalker's appearance resembled mine. The police investigated and found out that I had recently moved to this town, so they asked me to come in for an interview. I understand the situation, but Amanda, I didn't know you guys were living in this town. Yeah, right. Who would believe a criminal's excuse? I felt anger welling up at Amanda's dismissive words, but the police officer calmed me down. Is there anyone who can prove your innocence? At the police officer's words, I decided to have someone come to the police station. A few minutes later, the person that I chose arrived, and Scott, seeing her face, cried out in astonishment. You, Elizabeth? Hi, big brother. It's been a while. That's right. When I remarried, I married Scott's sister. Scott and Amanda, who didn't know the situation, seemed to be panicking. Actually, Scott's affair with Amanda was discovered by their parents, who cut ties with him. Scott's parents were the presidents of a company that ran several businesses, and knowing that their son had hurt someone, they decided to take care of me. At first, I didn't want to face the family of her lover, but as I got to know them, I felt my heart calming down. After spending time together, I ended up falling in love and marrying Elizabeth, Scott's sister. Are you kidding me? I haven't heard anything about this. Scott yelled at us, but Elizabeth, being used to her brother, argued back. Well, I do have an obligation to inform someone who doesn't even consider us family anymore. Besides, during the time you said Michael's ex-wife was being stalked, he was actually having dinner with me at the hotel's restaurant. You should be able to find our names on the reservation list. And if you ask the sommelier who served us wine, he should be able to confirm it. I was finally cleared of all charges. As we left the police station, grateful to Elizabeth, Amanda and Scott followed us and grabbed Elizabeth's shoulder. Wait a minute. Did you really marry this guy? He failed in the city and ended up in a rural area. You'll regret it if you marry someone like him. That's right, he neglected me a lot when we were married, too. It seems these two will do anything to ruin our happiness. As Elizabeth shook off the hand on her shoulder, a luxury car pulled up in front of the police station. Seeing the person who got out of the car, Scott exclaimed, Oh, Dad? Scott's father glared at his surprised son and said, I have no reason to be called Dad by you. More importantly, it seems you have been quite rude to my daughter and son-in-law. Well, can't be helped, can it? Are you really okay with Elizabeth marrying this loser? What's with your attitude toward the heir to my company? If anyone's a loser, it's you. Your business only succeeded because of good luck, and you've been acting all high and mighty without even understanding proper management. You have no right to badmouth Michael. Yes, I had moved to this town to study as a successor of my father-in-law's business, and had changed jobs to a group company in this town. Defeated, Scott dropped his shoulders, and Amanda desperately tried to talk to him. Hey, what does this mean? You said you'd inherit the company. That's right, Scott's company is doing well, right? If we work hard to grow the company. What? You haven't heard? His company is on the verge of bankruptcy, and considering his excessive spending, he's probably in debt too, isn't he? That's... Scott fell silent. Having been hit with the truth by his father, Elizabeth added the final blow. Big brother, you told Michael's ex-wife that you'd definitely make her happy. But it seems you're all talk, aren't you? And to believe that, I wonder how much you lack in judgment. And so, the stalking suspicion against my ex-wife was cleared. After that, Scott's company went bankrupt, and Amanda left him at the same time. On the other hand, I've been released from the curse of Amanda and Scott. and I'm living a happy life with Elizabeth.
This is the divorce papers. I've filled in my part. I see. Also, the severance pay and savings are all mine. You better apply for welfare. We've been married 30 years. All this time I've been serving a domineering husband, even caring for his parents while being bullied by them. There's no room for compassion left for my husband, who degrades me at this divorce agreement. There's someone I'd like you to meet. Huh, what? Did you find a new man or something? Looking at the man sitting next to me, my husband turned pale. My name is Emily. I'm a 60-year-old housewife. I married my husband, Daniel, 30 years ago. Back then I was in my 30s, long past my prime, to get married. I was deemed the woman left on the shelf. I thought I would have no chance getting married. But then an arranged date was proposed. The man from the date, Daniel, was the same age as me, shy, not very good at talking with women. I've never had a girlfriend before. I, who was also shy and had never dated a man before, sympathized with Daniel's confession. Moreover, I found Daniel, who spoke honestly without pretending to be sincere, and agreed to continue dating him. Our relationship, both in our 30s and shy, developed smoothly. Emily, will you marry me? Yes, I would love to. The year after our first date, I received a marriage proposal from Daniel, and we got happily married. Immediately after the marriage, we started living together in an apartment. Then I started to see a side of Daniel I had known before we got married. He was like the embodiment of a traditional father figure from the 80s, primarily quiet and serious. He never failed to go to work on time every morning, leaving work at the end of the day and coming back home. A domineering man, he would seriously tell me to follow 3 steps behind me. However, he occasionally came home late after drinking with his colleagues. At those times, he would act like a child saying, I can't move anymore. Help me take my clothes off. But at the time, I even found that adorable. A year after our marriage, I became pregnant and gave birth to our daughter, Emma, when I was 32. Emma was indeed a gem of a child. After giving birth, while I was feeding Emma milk in the hospital room, Daniel suddenly suggested that we live with his parents. Once Emma grows up, our current apartment will become too small. If we live together, we can save on rent, and my mom can help look after Emma, right? It's like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Thinking life would be easier for me as well, I agreed to his suggestion. But I never thought this would be the start of my misfortune. Why did you give birth to a girl? She can't be the heir. Once we started living with his parents, my mother-in-law started shaming me for giving birth to a girl. Then my father-in-law would say, well, if that's the case, just keep trying with Daniel every night until the boy is born, and throw inappropriate, even sexually inappropriate words at me. What's wrong with these people? Feeling pained by the words and actions directed towards me, I tried to discuss my father-in-law's situation with Daniel. However, he dismissed me, saying, Don't bother me with such matters every time. I'm exhausted from work. And the bullying from my in-laws was a daily occurrence. Due to my introverted personality and having married late, I felt insecure and couldn't stand up to my in-laws. I had endured this for quite some time. Nearly 30 years had passed since then, and I had been caring for my in-laws. Emily, you still haven't prepared my meal? You slowpoke. Mother-in-law, haven't you eaten 30 minutes ago? My mother-in-law had developed dementia and would often repeat herself. My father-in-law, on the other hand, had already become bedridden and could no longer converse properly. My husband Daniel was nowhere to be seen in this zoo-like house. I'm home. Daniel often came home late at night and often wouldn't even eat dinner. He'd just take a bath and go straight to bed. Of course, we hadn't had a proper conversation in a long time. Once the caregiving for my in-laws is over, I can live leisurely with Daniel. Daniel was looking at retiring in about 6 months, and I was getting through the care of my in-laws by looking forward to life with Daniel after that. However, an event occurred that shattered even this ordinary dream. Emily, can we talk? I was called by Daniel for the first time in a while, and I hurried over to him. What's up, Daniel? I've decided to quit my job. I was feeling a bit brighter due to this rare conversation with my husband, but this statement by my husband threw me into despair, as if I got thrown off by a roller coaster ride. Huh? What do you mean? There's nothing to it. I've decided to quit my job this month. What? So suddenly? Did something happen at work? You're close to retiring. Taken aback by my husband's unexpected statement, I inadvertently raised my voice. Perhaps offended, Daniel retorted in a firm voice. It's my life, and there's nothing wrong with doing what I want. I've been working diligently every day. I'm fed up with this monotonous life and want to enjoy my freedom as soon as possible. You're doing whatever you want to. What do you mean I'm doing whatever I want? I mean, there's also the matter of caring for your parents, and I thought it would be better to save as much money as possible. I was so confused that I couldn't organize my thoughts. So the issue of the in-laws' care that I'm currently facing came to mind, and I mentioned the cost of it. I knew it. You were after my money. You've been with me for money. I won't give you a penny, not even my retirement payout. You turned out to be exactly as they said. I was even more confused by Daniel's statement on top of my earlier confusion. Huh? No, I mean, realistically, we don't know how long the care will continue. So that's how you're going to play dumb. Always saying caregiving when you get asked what you do with your spare time? Do you have another man, What's up? What on earth is he talking about? I really didn't understand what he was saying at the time. Caring for the in-laws, who can't be left alone, there's no way I could have time for an affair. Rather, he eats what's prepared in the morning, goes to work, and at night he doesn't even touch the prepared meal, just goes straight to bed. Somehow, he's always out on his days off. Isn't it him who's living a self-centered life without lending me a hand? Despite such thoughts, I desperately tried to clear up this misunderstanding. No, I absolutely don't have the luxury to do that. I don't even have any spare time. Even with grocery shopping, I only spend about 30 minutes at the nearby market. It's only because they are the parents of my beloved husband that I'm doing this much, even sacrificing my time to care for my in-laws. Why can't Daniel understand that? It was so perplexing. Shut up. There are people who say they've seen you walking with a man, and I'll never forgive you. Daniel's accusations over something I really had no memory of pushed me to the brink of confusion. And then the accumulated fatigue caused me to feel dizzy. I can't handle this anymore. I need to get out of here for a bit. Feeling dizzy, I managed to grab my regular handbag and jacket, then ran towards the front door. See, you're going to meet that man, aren't you? Isn't that right? Daniel continued hurling insults until I put on my sandals at the entrance and opened the door to step outside. I ran out of the house for about a mile till his voice faded. I was so shocked that I even forgot to breathe. When I couldn't hear Daniel's voice anymore and walked a bit in the night breeze, I pondered on what to do next. But my thoughts were jumbled, and though I hesitated, I ended up calling Emma, my daughter who's currently living alone. Hello, Mom? It's been a while. The moment Emma answered the phone, tears started flowing uncontrollably. Mom, your father... I couldn't stop sobbing and could not manage to articulate the situation to Emma. Whoa, Mom, what happened? Are you okay? Calm down. Let's start by calming down, okay? Emma, sensing my distress, tried to soothe me. After walking a bit, I found a park and decided to take a break on a bench. I was sobbing so much that I couldn't speak, but Emma kept me on the line, checking on me. Emma, I'm sorry. I must have surprised you, calling out of the blue. After a few tens of minutes, I managed to calm down and started speaking again. No, it's okay. Where are you now? I'm at M Park near our house right now. Oh, I remember playing there a lot when I was a kid. Is Zest, the diner, still there? I looked up and saw the sign of the chain diner across the street. Yes, it's still there. Okay, I'll come pick you up. So just go into the diner and wait for me. You can order something if you want. I'll pay for it. Okay, I'll wait there. Thank you. Feeling my daughter's kindness, I entered the diner. After about an hour, Emma arrived at the diner. Mom, something serious must have happened. You were crying so much. Emma, thank you. I mean, your father said something terrible to me. I told Emma about what had happened earlier. Emma listened to my story with a serious gaze, intently watching me. When I finished speaking, she sat quietly thinking for a while. Then after finishing the coffee she had ordered upon arrival, she turned to me. Mom, first of all, stay at my place starting from today. You don't need to go back to that place. Also, there are a few things I'm curious about, so why don't we head back to my place for a bit, she said. I felt grateful for how strong and dependable my daughter had grown up to be. Although I was worried about caring for my in-laws, I was exhausted and couldn't go on. I decided to rest and rely on Emma for today. Thank you. I'll take you up on your offer, I said. As we left the cafe, Emma took my hand and hailed a taxi to head back to her apartment. Emma was currently working as a writer for a camping magazine. She always enjoyed camping and often does solo camping trips, sharing her experiences on her blog and social media. Originally, she worked as a corporate employee for a general trading company, but with the recent boom in camping, she was scouted via her social media and decided to switch to being a freelance writer. I guess this career as a writer suits her temperament. Nowadays, she contributes articles to magazines not only about camping, but on various topics, making a living. You've always devoted yourself to Dad and the in-laws, Mom. It's unthinkable that they would suspect you now, she said. As we turned off the lights and settled in for the night, Emma began speaking to me. You know, ever since I was little, I thought the way the in-laws treated you was odd, she said. It was clear from the way she referred to my in-laws, calling them the in-laws rather than by their names, that she didn't harbor any good feelings towards them. Moreover, Dad's attitude toward you is strange, too. He treats you like a maid, and even if the in-laws are being mean to you, he doesn't help at all, she added. I was surprised by how well Emma understood the dynamics of our household. Belatedly, I was astonished by my daughter's insightful ability. But your father is busy, I said, trying to defend him. That's the thing that's bothering me, she replied. What do you mean, bothers you? Oh, don't worry about it, Mom. You're tired today. Let's just sleep. Huh? Yes, you're right. I am utterly worn out today. See? You can relax now. Good night. Yes, good night. 3 days after, I started staying at Emma's. I was preparing dinner when Emma, who had been out on a reporting assignment, came home. Oh, what a wonderful smell. Your cooking always smells the best, Mom. Oh, it's been years since I heard you say that. Let's eat while it's hot, I replied. Emma washed her hands and sat at the table. I served the loaded potato soup and sat down as well. Emma finished her plate in no time, happily praising the taste as she ate. After the dishes away, she brought out a coffee and an envelope, sitting back at the table. Then she began to speak with a serious expression. Mom, please stay calm when you hear this. Actually, I hired a detective to track and investigate what Dad has been doing these past 3 days. I was so surprised that I choked on my soup. Huh? Investigate Dad? What do you mean? Well, after listening to your stories, there were some things that got me curious. Like, why does Dad always come home late? And who was the one who tattled about you walking with a man? Seems like Emma's innate insight caught up with Daniel's strange behavior. Being a writer, she had a broad network of connections. This time, her private investigator was also someone she got to know from her connection. Please calm down and listen. According to the report from the investigator, it turns out that Dad was having an affair with another woman. What? I felt my mind go blank. Not only did Daniel suspect me of cheating, but he himself was having an affair. Emma showed me the reports and photos that she had received from her contact. Indeed, there was a picture of Daniel arm in arm with a woman looking quite intimate. This woman's name is Lily, and she's 51 years old. She works at a bar that Dad goes to near our house. Even though Lily is 51, she looked like she's in her 40s, wearing a flamboyant dress with a black background and a pattern of red roses. Dad has been going to that bar every day for years and seems to have become quite close with Lily. Emma relayed the investigator's report to me in a matter-of-fact manner. Can you believe he would betray us like this? While Mom is busy taking care of Grandma and Grandpa, every day he's out having an affair with another woman. Indeed, it's unbelievable. I have been living on the edge without any spare time to even consider such things. I thought I might have been at fault when Daniel suspected me of having an affair. But now, anger is welling up inside me at Daniel's cold actions. It seems that for the past 3 days, Dad has been hanging out at Lily's house. Apparently, he's hired someone to take care of Grandma and Grandpa, and it seems it's not even a professional caregiver. He's left his own parents entirely in the hands of someone who's not even a professional caregiver while he's out enjoying himself with his mistress. I'm so disappointed to think that I've loved such a man until now. I didn't know Daniel was like this. I can't believe it. Right. Seeing how Dad is, I've never really had a good impression of marriage. I'm sorry, but it's always seemed more like an employer-employee relationship between you and him. You're right, Emma. I've woken up now. I want to divorce that man and take revenge. Okay, if that's the case, I'll help you. From there, we, as a mother-daughter team, began to prepare our revenge against Daniel and Lily. First, we asked the private investigator who had caught Daniel in the act of the affair to continue gathering evidence. Then we received definitive proof, such as a photo of Daniel and Lily boldly kissing on the street in front of the bar where Lily works. I can't believe he can do something so shameful without any shame. Additionally, the private investigator who had infiltrated the bar recorded a conversation between Daniel and Lily. Has your wife left and not come back? It's refreshing without that boring woman around. She's probably with the man you mentioned. But aren't you worried that your daughter might demand your retirement fund? There's no way she would have the guts to say such things. She's even resigned from a large corporation and stooped down to some trifling job. She probably doesn't even know that she can claim some amount. Hey, you're right. I'll book that luxury hotel right away with your severance pay. Looking at the city lights at night. Oh, how exciting. Are you coming over tonight? Yeah, Of course. Each time evidence like this surfaced, I harbored resentment for Daniel, mixed with anger. Once I gathered enough such evidence, I went to consult with a lawyer about divorce. Given your husband's clear infidelity, you can naturally claim compensation for emotional distress and a share of property. The lawyer mentioned that I could also demand compensation from Daniel's mistress, Lily. Furthermore, as Daniel had neglected my in-laws' care and forced it all onto me, it seemed I could request compensation for that. Now we need some proof to rebut the claim that you are having an affair with another man. To prove that I was not having an affair, I got a recorded data from the surveillance camera that we used to monitor our in-laws. This was something Emma had installed when she returned home 2 years ago. To slightly alleviate my burden, she had it professionally installed. I had Emma set it up so I could watch the footage on my phone, but I couldn't figure out how to use it, and I totally forgotten that we even had one. According to Emma, the data captured by surveillance camera is stored in a distant data center for 365 days. Since Emma had contracted the service and was taking care of the monthly payments, Daniel had no knowledge of the camera's existence. Emma operated the computer and obtained the recorded data. Playing back the data made it clear how I was essentially housebound due to caregiving duties. The recordings also captured the verbal abuse I was receiving from my in-laws. There's also a perfect recording when you stormed out of the house. They really had some nerve, didn't they? Being traumatized, I couldn't bring myself to watch it, but Emma, who had seen it, was visibly livid. After making these preparations, and just as we were about to strike, I received a call from Daniel. Hey, Emily, when are you going to stop wandering about? We need to talk. Come to the local Zest at 3 p.m. this Sunday. Without a care of my well-being, Daniel merely relayed his message. Yes, understood. I quickly responded and hung up the phone. Don't worry, Mom. I'll be with you. With that, Emma made a call to the lawyer. Then Sunday at 3 p.m. arrived. Emma and I, who had arrived at Zest on time, searched for Daniel. However, there was no sight of Daniel, so we took our seats and waited for him. Perhaps we waited about an hour. I spotted Daniel outside the restaurant entrance. However, there was also a woman next to him. That must be Lily. Despite it still being daylight, Daniel shamelessly hugged the woman before parting ways. With a smug look on his face, Daniel opened the door and entered the restaurant. Upon spotting us, he promptly sat down in front of us. Oh, Emma, you're here too. Unbothered by our glares, Daniel right out began to speak. Emily, I've decided to divorce you. Is that so? Daniel looked slightly surprised at my rather dry response. This is the divorce paper. I've already filled it out. Understood. I promptly received the divorce paper. And the retirement money and savings are all mine, Daniel said. No, that's entirely selfish. I will rightly receive alimony and a division of property, I responded. You were just after my money, weren't you? It's disappointing, but I don't plan to give you a single penny. You should rely on welfare to live. We had been married 30 years. All this time, I had served my domineering husband, even taking care of his parents, who were always treating me poorly. Yet my husband, who'd been lusting over some cheap woman, continued to provoke me on this divorce agreement. I no longer have mercy for this guy and his mistress. Actually, there's someone I'd like you to meet, I said. Huh, what? You found a new man? The man sitting next to me made Daniel pale. Daniel, your wife was telling the truth, he said. Why is the department head here? This man was the head of the department at the company where Daniel worked. I was contacted by a lawyer acting as your wife's representative. She said that you were likely to get a divorce due to your infidelity. She also expressed concern that you would quickly spend your retirement money with your mistress and asked for a temporary withholding of your retirement fund. Emily, you even told people at work? Daniel, surprised to the point of bulging his eyes, was interrupted by the department head. It's our first time dealing with an incident like this. I received a call from your wife's attorney about having a discussion today. Considering that the notice of seizure might be fraudulent, I decided to join since I wanted to confirm the truth. Despite your own infidelity, you falsely accused me of cheating to evade paying alimony. That's why I took measures to prevent it. What? You're saying I cheated? Do you have any evidence? Then my lawyer brought in Lily, Daniel's mistress. I'm Emily's lawyer. Lily here is also related to the case, so I had her come over. Upon confirming the situation, Daniel's department head left and the lawyer took a seat next to me. I'm here to claim $60,000 in alimony from Daniel for his adultery and for imposing the care of his parents on Emily, and $30,000 from Lily for engaging in adultery with Daniel, despite knowing he was married and causing Emily's marriage to break down. As soon as the lawyer explained in a businesslike manner, Lily slapped Daniel. You liar! Leave it to me, you said. And now I'm also taking the fall. Daniel, his face red, started to sob. I didn't know Emily was this smart. I watched the ugly squabble of these two with cold eyes, regretting the 30 years I'd spent with this man. Due to the chaotic situation, we showed evidence of Daniel and Lily's affair and adjourned the meeting. Later, I heard from her lawyer that Lily and her parents had visited the law office to agree to the payment of alimony. Seeing Daniel's pathetic face at the restaurant, Lily's feeling for him died, and she broke up with him. On the other hand, the lawyer thought Daniel would request a reduction, but apparently he didn't. Of course, if he doesn't pay, we would take it from his seized retirement fund. I wondered if he was screaming in pain from having to take care of his parents. I have not taken care of them since then. I only took good care of them because I loved Daniel, and they were his parents. But without that love, I could no longer bear the unpaid labor in that hell. Daniel has always been dumping his responsibilities on me. It's only natural that Daniel should take on the role of caregiving. The elderly care surveillance Emma had installed was removed by a contractor the day of their meeting at the diner, so there's no way he would know what was going on. I ended up moving into Emma's place. I was only able to get back at my husband thanks to Emma. It's always been said that children are treasures, but to me, Emma feels more like an angel than a treasure. With this incident, I managed to distance myself from Daniel's family and painfully realized how little attention I was able to give Emma. As her mother, I plan on making up for that by spending time with Emma and creating many more memories with her.
You old hag with no money. You're in the way. We'll take all the inheritance. Get out now. Right after Dad's funeral, my brother's wife kicked Mom out. I couldn't believe what my sister-in-law had said. This was just too cruel. I was furious and about to lash out at my brother and his wife. But Mom stopped me and whispered in my ear, "That girl, she's done for." I looked at Mom, confused, not understanding what she meant. My name is Bonnie. I'm just an ordinary office worker at a small to medium-sized company. My family's home is a famous upscale restaurant in our hometown. When people find out, they're always surprised. They can't imagine someone as plain and unnoticeable as me being associated with fine dining. In reality, I have little to do with that restaurant now. My brother, Raleigh, who followed in Dad's footsteps as a chef, and his wife, Aita, help run the place. It's clear that my brother and his wife, who live with our parents, will take over the restaurant, and there's no role for me. Dad was a chef and entrepreneur who made the restaurant famous in just one generation. In a word, he was a go-getter. He was tough at work. So I think it was hard on Mom and my brother and his wife who worked with him. But away from work, Dad was a loving family man who made people laugh with his jokes. I loved Dad for that. Then one day, I got a call from Mom at work. "Your father has collapsed. Come to the hospital right away." I could tell from Mom's voice that Dad's situation was serious. I rushed to the hospital. When I arrived, Mom and the doctor were talking, looking very serious. "Mom, is Dad okay?" After the doctor left, I asked Mom, not knowing what was going on. Mom was looking worriedly at Dad, lying in bed and stroking his hand. His hands were thick and hard, like a craftsman's. I loved Dad's hands. "He's not in immediate danger, but it seems there will be after effects," Mom murmured, still looking at Dad. The doctor had told her that Dad would probably be paralyzed on his right side. Not being able to move his right hand would be the hardest thing for Dad. Mom and I sighed, unable to talk any further. "Is my father-in-law okay?" My sister-in-law's voice echoed in the quiet hospital room. She had brushed over after hearing from Mom. I thought she was worried, but as soon as she heard about Dad's condition and after effects, her expression changed, and she began to smirk. "Well, he can't cook anymore, so the restaurant is ours now." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The sister-in-law I knew was quiet, never going against Mom, Dad, or my brother, always smiling, always considerate. But the person in front of me now was like a stranger. I couldn't keep up with her sudden change. "I definitely won't help my father-in-law's care. You'll have to manage on your own, mother-in-law." Ignoring my shock, she said that and left the room. The whole incident felt like a dream. "That's her true nature. She's been hiding it. I noticed, but she's really wicked," Mom said, sighing. I was worried about Dad's condition, but my sister-in-law's behavior was so shocking that I went home that day in confusion. 2 weeks later, Dad was discharged and returned home. Dad's body was now so frail that he couldn't even manage to go to the bathroom or eat on his own. Proud as he was, Dad would sometimes throw tantrums and throw things. Worried about Dad and Mom, who was taking care of him, I went back to my parents' house to help with caregiving whenever I had time. "You're coming back too often. It's annoying." My sister-in-law would make snide remarks every time she saw me. But that wasn't something I could worry about. Mom looked more worn out every time I saw her. She was taking care of Dad's toileting, meals, and baths all by herself all day long, probably without any time to rest. Though they sometimes hired a helper, Mom's burden was still significant. And my brother and sister-in-law, who lived with them, not only refused to help with Dad's care, but also didn't even prepare Mom's meals. "Mom, you must be having a hard time alone. Should I quit my job and come back here? Not just to help occasionally, but to take care of Dad together." Since my brother and his wife were clearly unreliable, I had no choice but to help Mom. I seriously considered joining in Dad's caregiving. But even when I suggested it, Mom shook her head. "There's a helper, and I'm fine on my own. You don't have to worry about me," Mom answered with a smile, perhaps not wanting to worry me. But she looked like she was pushing herself too hard. I was driven by anxiety that Mom might collapse too. And then the situation took a turn for the worse. Dad, who had become quite disheartened, began to show symptoms of dementia. "Who are you?" Being told that by my own father was quite painful. "He used to act so high and mighty, and now he doesn't even recognize his own daughter. How pathetic." My sister-in-law, who happened to peek into the room, sneered at me. Forgotten by Dad. Her attitude, on top of the shock I was already feeling, hurt me even more.
Father-in-law smells a bit. If you want to stay in this house, you better behave.
My sister-in-law, her face twisted, pinched her nose and looked at Dad with contempt. Mom completely ignored her. She was probably holding back from reacting to the provocation. My sister-in-law clicked her tongue and left the room. Dad, it's okay. Mom spoke to Dad in a gentle voice, like soothing a child. Thinking about how my parents were being treated so roughly by my brother and his wife, I felt like crying. Dad's dementia continued to progress, and his body weakened more and more. It was soon becoming impossible to take care for him at home. As I was thinking about what to do with my parents, my brother, who rarely spoke to me even when I went home, called me. I answered the phone and complained to my brother about his wife's attitude. But he brushed off my words and started talking about himself, saying, "That's not important," and asked me to help out at the restaurant on weekends. I thought it was very selfish of him, so I told him I would consult with Mom and get back to him, then hung up. I immediately called Mom and told her about the conversation with my brother. Then Mom told me the reason my brother had asked for my help.
The long-time employees and chefs are quitting one after another. Almost no one is left. They all say they can't keep up with Alita's way of doing things. I haven't been to the restaurant in a while, so I don't know the details.
Mom was no longer involved in the restaurant's operations. But even while caring for Dad, she was concerned about the restaurant. It was a place they had worked hard to build together. There must be a strong attachment, and it's only natural to be concerned. She must also be worried about the employees with whom they had shared joys and sorrows. From Mom's voice, I could sense her disappointment that things had come to this. I'll go help out at the restaurant this weekend. I'll see for myself what's going on. So, don't worry. After discussing it with my mom, we decided that Dad would go to daycare while I couldn't help with caregiving. That weekend, I changed into an employee uniform in the locker room of my family's restaurant. How many years had it been since I last wore this uniform? It felt nostalgic, but looking around, I didn't recognize any faces. Young people who Dad would never have hired if he were still active, like those with piercings and conspicuous tattoos, were struggling in their unfamiliar uniforms as they carried food. The interior of the restaurant, which I hadn't visited in a long time, had changed significantly from my memory. I walked around the restaurant to regain my senses. Then, from a large space created by connecting several tables, I heard lively voices. Looking over, I saw my sister-in-law. She wasn't working, but was having a banquet with about 30 women of her age. My sister-in-law was sitting in the center of the table, happily guzzling wine.
Ladies of my class, all our dishes are high-end and delicious. Today's my treat, so enjoy yourselves to the fullest. Truffles, foie gras, eat as much as you want.
My sister-in-law, who seemed quite drunk, used an empty wine bottle as a microphone and said something outrageous. Cheers erupted from those present.
Alita, are you serious? Doing that will cause a huge deficit for the restaurant.
I hurried over to my sister-in-law to stop her. She suddenly changed her cheerful face and glared at me.
Shut up! A sister-in-law who can't even get married should keep quiet. This is my restaurant, so I can do whatever I want.
With that, she made a gesture to shoo me away. This is my parents' restaurant. I swallowed those words and left the table. The situation in the restaurant was dire. The kitchen was overwhelmed by the unreserved all-you-can-eat orders from the group led by my sister-in-law, and they couldn't handle the other customers' orders. Regular customers from Dad's time were so angry that they left, saying, "How long are you going to make us wait?" I had never seen these customers angry before. Thinking this was bad, I asked the chefs to put my sister-in-law's table on hold and suggested prioritizing the other customers, but they said they couldn't. My sister-in-law had told them to prioritize her table. If they didn't listen, they would be scolded later, the chefs said, looking down. Leaving the restaurant to such chefs, my brother was engrossed in a horse racing broadcast. He probably became a chef just by going along with the atmosphere around him. As soon as Dad, who was intimidating, was gone from the kitchen, this happened. Since childhood, he had always watched Dad's face, and now that Dad was gone, he was watching Alita's face. This was not good. I approached the table again to warn my sister-in-law about the orders. Just then, a long-serving employee, whom I knew, was telling my sister-in-law, "We can't serve that dish anymore. We've run out of the main ingredient, truffles." The moment the employee bowed his head, my sister-in-law raised her voice in anger.
Then go buy some. You should know that much, you useless person.
And she even threw an empty plate at the employee. She was acting more like a rowdy, drunken customer than an owner. I understood why the long-serving employees had been quitting one after another.
I'm thinking of changing the name of this restaurant. The current name is old-fashioned and cliché. I want something more stylish and cool.
My sister-in-law turned to her friends, laughing and saying such things. The restaurant was finished. Dad's once renowned establishment was nowhere to be seen. After finishing my help, I headed to the locker room, wondering how to tell Mom about this situation. She would surely be saddened to know about this. Thinking so, my steps felt heavy as I headed home. The next day when I visited my parents' house, I honestly told Mom about the situation at the restaurant. Mom sighed sadly. "I thought it might be like that. My son has been under Alita's thumb since Dad fell ill. And the restaurant can't survive without your father." Tears welled in Mom's eyes, and her lips trembled. Seeing Mom like that, I couldn't hold back my tears either. "I'm sorry. If I had been stronger, I could have protected Dad and Mom's restaurant." Mom patted my shoulder, saying it was okay. "Let's give up on the restaurant." Mom persuaded me to do the same. After that, I continued to refuse my brother's requests to help at the restaurant. No matter how many times I refused, he kept calling, and his complaints about my sister-in-law began to mix into the conversation. She was still inviting acquaintances and treating them, and the restaurant was facing a huge deficit. They were even struggling to pay for supplies. Furthermore, despite having no money, my sister-in-law was insisting on renovating the restaurant into a stylish cafe bar.
That has nothing to do with me.
I would hang up the phone in the middle of the conversation every time. They could do whatever they wanted with the restaurant. I only wished for Dad and Mom to live a peaceful life. A few months later, Dad suddenly passed away from pneumonia. Many people came to the funeral of Dad, who was known for his kindness and inability to refuse requests. Mom greeted the condolence visitors with composure.
"You must be tired, mother-in-law. Please rest in the bag. I'll take care of the guests."
My sister-in-law only tried to assert herself at times like this. She probably didn't like Mom taking charge of the funeral. She seemed to want to show that she was the face of the family.
"No, I'm in charge of the funeral, so I will properly greet everyone."
But Mom didn't allow such behavior from my sister-in-law and sternly rebuked her. Whether overwhelmed by Mom's forcefulness or not, my sister-in-law left the scene with a bitter face. After that, under Mom's direction, Dad's funeral proceeded smoothly. Chefs who had trained under Dad, familiar regular customers, and many people I knew came and encouraged Mom and me. They didn't even make eye contact with my brother and his wife. They all knew what my brother and his wife had been doing since Dad fell ill. Throughout the funeral, my brother and his wife looked uncomfortable. I wish they would just keep quiet. That's what I thought as I looked at them. All of your father-in-law's inheritance will go to us, so you two should renounce your share. It was when the cremation was over, and Mom was holding Dad's ashes, getting ready to leave. My sister-in-law approached and said that to Mom and me. The shop, the house, the money, we'll take all the inheritance. It's only natural, since we've been listening to that arrogant old man for so long. Her words were truly appalling. How much more could this woman belittle others after having relied on Dad for so long? You penniless old women, you're in the wrong. You should leave the house right away. We're strangers now, so don't contact us. My sister-in-law bared her teeth at Mom too. I was so angry. I felt like I was losing my mind. I almost grabbed my sister-in-law. My mom held my arm and shook her head. It's okay. It's over now. Looking at me, my sister-in-law laughed and walked away. I felt like running after her and kicking her, but Mom was still holding my hand. When Mom couldn't see Alita anymore, she let go of my hand. Then she looked at my face and smiled. That girl, she's finished. I was puzzled by her words. Mom said nothing more and began to get ready to leave again. You'll understand in time, Mom said, holding Dad's ashes with her usual gentle smile. After that, Mom, who was driven out of her home, has been living in my condominium. Surprisingly, Mom had saved a considerable amount of money in her name. It seems Dad had been paying Mom a substantial salary, and with that saved salary as capital, Mom had been increasing her assets through investments like stocks. This place is too cramped. Let's buy a more spacious condominium. Mom is currently looking for a property for the two of us to live in. 3 months later, a call came from my sister-in-law. Why didn't you tell me about father-in-law's debt? A scary debt collector is sitting in the shop. What are you going to do about it? She was screaming as soon as I picked up the phone. Her voice was so loud that Mom, who was next to me, could hear everything. Hearing my sister-in-law's screams, Mom gave a mischievous smile and took the phone from me. Oh, Alita, it's been a while. Your father-in-law was too kind-hearted and became a guarantor for other people's debts. Before we knew it, the debt had grown to a huge amount. I've been repaying it until now, but it's your turn from now on. After all, you're taking all the inheritance, aren't you? Mom spoke with a chuckle. Even though she was laughing, her eyes were cold. Mom must have been harboring quite a bit of anger herself. Mother-in-law, I apologize for everything. Let's live together again and run the shop, please. My sister-in-law changed her attitude and begged. I couldn't believe she could say such a thing. I never want to deal with you two again. Mom's voice was colder than I had ever heard. She ignored my sister-in-law's screams and hung up the phone. Block her calls, please. Mom smiled as she handed the phone back to me. We had already purchased a new condominium and started our new life there. Of course, my brother and his wife don't know the location, so we'll probably never see them again. Later, through local acquaintances, I learned that my family's restaurant had closed. My brother and his wife had lost the shop and the house to debt and were left penniless. They still have remaining debt, so they are now working from morning to night at a chain restaurant. In the old apartment where they live, the voices of the couple berating each other can be heard echoing. Meanwhile, Mom and I finished observing Dad's 3rd death anniversary and dined at a restaurant opened by Dad's top disciple. The food tasted just like what Dad used to make. That night, we talked about memories of Dad and enjoyed a feast of gourmet dishes to our heart's content.
Come on, let's talk about the inheritance already. I couldn't believe my sister was saying this. How much do you think I'll get from Grandpa's inheritance? Let's say it's $1 million. She used to be so sweet as a child. When did she become so obsessed with money? My name is Annette, and I'm 35 years old. Dedicated to my job and single, I have no plans of getting married anytime soon, and I'm enjoying my single life. My work, I'm a caregiver. As many say, caregiving is indeed a tough job. There are numerous tasks, and establishing a rapport with clients can be challenging. There are times when it's physically and emotionally draining. However, Annette, thank you so much. You're a lifesaver. Just hearing words of gratitude like that uplifts my spirit. It makes me feel that choosing this profession was worth it. Annette, is it time for you to clock out? I'll take over from here. As I was washing used towels, my colleague called out to me. Sorry to always rely on you. Could you handle the rest? Sure, take care. It's 5 p.m. The woman who clocked in after me is on the night shift until morning. Though I should be doing night shifts too, I have my reasons for not being able to. That my workplace understands this, I'm really grateful. After showing appreciation for the night shift staff, I hurriedly make my way home. My house is about a 20-minute drive from work. Grandma, I'm home. Oh, Annette. Grandma was busy preparing Grandpa's meal. Have you eaten, Grandma? Not yet. Let's have dinner, all three of us, with Grandpa. Sounds good. I live with my grandparents, primarily to care for Grandpa. It might be rare for a grandchild to serve as a caregiver, but it was entirely my choice to move into their home. I lost my mother at a young age, and my dad was often busy with work, so my younger sister Lucia and I were frequently left in the care of our paternal grandparents. I loved their comforting home, full of kindness. But Lucia didn't feel the same. She was often rebellious toward them. This house feels so old-fashioned. Even Grandma's clothes are outdated and ugly. Every time she acted like this, both my dad and I reprimanded her, but she didn't care. She seemed to have forgotten all the favors she received from them, acting recklessly. The only time she acted sweetly was when asking for an allowance. My grandparents, doting as they were, would inevitably give in to Lucia. This was a pattern, always. Even after she started working, Lucia would come asking for money whenever she ran out. When she got married 5 years ago, she even demanded a $10,000 wedding gift. At that point, both Dad and I harshly scolded her for her greed. What do you think you're doing with Grandma and Grandpa? Huh? It's my wedding, isn't it? What's wrong with them giving generously? My sister, as usual. You need to stop this. You're being way too selfish. Dad scolded her firmly, but in the end, Grandpa and Grandma gifted her $10,000 for her wedding. I tried to stop them, saying it wasn't necessary, but they insisted. It's fine. It's a celebration after all. If she'd at least shown some gratitude, that would have been something, but both my sister and her husband acted like they deserved it. That's why I never really liked my sister and her husband. After her wedding, I decided to keep a comfortable distance. Being too involved would only stress me out. 2 years ago, Grandpa had a stroke and became bedridden. We discussed putting him in a facility, but Grandma was adamantly against it. I'll take care of Grandpa till the end. Grandpa and Grandma have always been close, even in my eyes. It would hurt too much to separate them. But Grandma is over 80 now. It's tough for her to take care of him alone. So I made a decision. I'll move in with them. I owe them so much. They raised me, and more than anything, I want to give back. So now as a professional caregiver and as their grandchild, I'm here to support them. I requested a job transfer and moved into this house. Now I'm taking turns with Grandma to care for Grandpa. That's why I turned down night shifts at my current job. I can't thank my workplace enough for accommodating me, because you are listening to my selfishness. Grandpa looks happy today, Grandma said, wiping Grandpa's body. I think so too. It feels like he's smiling. Though bedridden and unable to speak, we felt like we understood how Grandpa was feeling that day. Life's a grind, but doing it for Grandpa and Grandma makes it all worth it. That's how much I adore my grandparents. One day, while Grandma was out at a tea party with her friends, I stayed home to take care of Grandpa's meals. Grandpa, is it good? Grandpa doesn't say a word, but his gentle eyes seem to express his gratitude. Just then, the front door swings open, pretty roughly. Oh, you're here, sis. What brings you here? It was Lucia, walking in without any hesitation. Even though she's family, her visit made me uneasy. I just came to check on Grandpa. As if she really cares about him, I thought, but I kept my mouth shut. So, how's Grandpa doing? Nothing's changed, really. She inquires, but clearly doesn't seem all that interested. By the way, where's Grandma? She's out. Need something? No big deal, just asking. I wonder what she's up to. Man, this house sure is old-fashioned. Lucia starts sizing up the house like she's evaluating it. I felt some kind of ulterior motive and became more guarded. Hey, did Grandma tell you anything? Tell me what? About Grandpa's inheritance? That left me flabbergasted. Grandpa's still alive, for heaven's sake. Why would she bring up something so insensitive? There is a limit to being unscrupulous. Why are you so concerned about this? Look, if we wait until he's gone, it'll be chaos. Better to talk about it now, don't you think? That's enough. Is this why you showed up? To discuss something like this? What's wrong with it? We have to discuss it sometime. Why are you even involved in a conversation about inheritance? Things escalated into an argument right then and there. I knew exactly what Lucia was after. She just wants money all the time. My sister's greed is really disappointing, to say the least. While we're arguing, "Oh, you're here?" Grandma comes home. "Grandma, long time no see." My sister cozies up to Grandma like it's the most natural thing in the world. Grandma gives me a wry smile. "By the way, Grandma, could you spare some cash? I'm really strapped this month." Seeing Grandma's troubled face, I intervene. "What are you saying? You're a grown adult. Just shut it. I'm talking to Grandma here." "But Grandma, she's struggling." "That's not your concern. I'm the one she's asking." My sister looks up at Grandma with a beguiling smile. She's practically broadcasting her "give me money" vibe. It's really tacky. "I've just paid the neighborhood association fees, so I'm short on cash. Sorry, dear." Grandma skillfully sidesteps my sister's request. Is that so? All right then, I'm leaving." Lucia backs down quickly and leaves. Relieved, I look at Grandma. "Grandma, I'm sorry." "There's nothing for you to apologize for, Annette. I bought some treats. Let's enjoy them together." Grandma smiles warmly. My sister is a real piece of work. What's she so strapped for cash for? Both of us have jobs, and neither of us have kids, so why is she asking for money? I found out soon enough. Unbeknownst to me and Dad, she and her husband had bought a house, and not just any house, a new, expansive, single-family home. Already under construction and set to be finished in 6 months. And it's located in prime real estate, no less. Are they really going to be okay building such a big house there? Dad said he didn't contribute any money, so perhaps her in-laws are helping. No point in worrying about it. If they bought the place, they must have passed a loan screening and have a repayment plan in place. That's what I thought. Until... Just as her new home was nearing completion, Grandpa passed away. Pneumonia took him quickly. I loved Grandpa, so I cried throughout the funeral. Grandma was the one who consoled me. "Grandpa was happy, Annette, especially with all the care you gave him. So let's send him off with a smile, not tears." Grandpa was happy. That single phrase gave me immense relief. Grandma's calm face was deeply comforting. Then, at a family gathering after the funeral, as Dad, Grandma, and I were reminiscing about Grandpa, my sister seemed restless next to us, whispering with her husband, both clearly unsettled. Then, with a look of determination, Lucia speaks up. "Hey, what about Grandpa's inheritance?" The room went ice cold at her words. We had just come back from the funeral, and now this? Dad quickly tried to stop Lucia. "What on earth are you talking about? But we need to discuss this, now!" Lucia repeats what she used to say when Grandpa was alive. Is money all she thinks about? Let's sit down and talk, okay? My sister seemed eager to move the conversation forward. Considering the size of this property and its value, it should be roughly around $1 million. When did she even have the time to look that up? Dad and I were taken aback, but Grandma just sipped her coffee calmly. So, when is that payment due? Would you stop that already? I tried to stop her, but Lucia wouldn't shut up. We based our mortgage on the inheritance. We've got to get what's coming to us. My sister's husband nodded in agreement. These two really don't have a clue. I decided to drop a bombshell on them. Grandchildren hardly have any inheritance rights, you know. What? My sister let out a baffled cry. What are you misunderstanding here? Dad asked her, puzzled. What do you mean? Why? Lucia asked Grandma, confused. Dad jumped in. Spouses and children are the inheritors, not grandchildren. Maybe when we pass, you could be next in line. No way! I didn't know that! My sister looked like she couldn't believe it. What about a will? Did Grandpa leave a will? No will. Dad always said the estate would be divided according to the law. So what are we going to do about our house payment? My sister and her husband looked devastated. What payment are you talking about? That's when my sister dropped this on me. We set a higher down payment because we thought Grandpa's inheritance was coming, and that payment is due next month. Lucia started freaking out. Apparently, they had stretched themselves thin to get that new house. I assumed they'd gotten help from my sister's in-laws, but they'd actually borrowed up to their limit. They'd planned to put down a $100,000 down payment, and now everything was off. Is there really no money left for me? Isn't there a little bit left? Despite asking Dad and Grandma again, the result was the same. No matter how much she fusses, the law won't change. Well, if there's anything left after Mom and us siblings get our share, then maybe a little will go to you, Dad said. This sent my sister into a full-on rage. This is ridiculous! All these years, my sister has been using Grandpa's money, and now I get nothing? My sister turned her anger towards me. Stop making stuff up! I never did that. Liar! You said you were caring for him, but you were really just after his inheritance. I couldn't believe my sister was thinking that way. I was at a loss for words. So, you thought it was odd, huh? Volunteering to take care of Grandpa instead of our parents. Can't think of any reason other than money. That's it. You should pay the down payment on our house. You've been siphoning money from Grandpa, haven't you? She hurled those words at me with a smug look on her face. Angry and sad, I just clenched my lips, unable to say anything. Then Grandma, who had been quietly sipping her coffee, spoke up. How dare you speak to Annette like that? You foolish grandchild! Everyone was shocked by Grandma's usually gentle and calm tone. Relying on that kind of money to build a house is wrong in the first place, isn't it? But Grandma, we're really in a bind. Figure it out yourselves. Rebuked sternly by Grandma, Lucia fell silent. You need to reconsider how you're living your life. You're on a path to ruin, Dad added. Shaken, Lucia and her husband left, as if running away. Afterward, they couldn't make the down payment in time and tried to restructure the loan, but they were not approved. They never even set foot in the newly built house before they had to give it up. My sister resisted tearfully, but there was nothing she could do. In the end, they were left with a debt of $200,000. My sister lamented, I should have never bought the house. But it was too late. I heard they're now working day and night to pay off their debts. It's astonishing that they don't understand the basics of inheritance. After giving up the house, my sister came several times to ask Dad for money, but Dad firmly refused. She even turned to me. Sis, please help your cute little sister. Cute sister, huh? I too declined, saying, sorry, I can't afford to. I do have enough savings, but I see no obligation to lend it, especially with no assurance of getting it back. Why won't you help me? I'm in trouble. Despite her pleading, I remained unswayed. Take this as a lesson. Stop relying on others. I gave her some advice, but who knows if it'll sink in. By the way, Grandma, what is it? A month and a half later, I asked Grandma something that had been on my mind. Why did you say that to Lucia? I was stunned to hear Grandma's harsh tone, since I'd never seen her angry or yelling before. Because she was so unkind to you, Annette, when you've been so good to Grandpa. No matter how much I love my granddaughter, I couldn't forgive her for what she said to you. Tears filled my eyes, touched that Grandma thought so highly of me. Thank you, Annette. Grandma, I should be the one thanking you. If I'm gone someday, I think I'll leave this house and land to you, Annette. Oh, stop talking like that. I'm happy to have such a loving granddaughter. I have no regrets whenever my time comes. Though Grandma says this, I want her to live for as long as possible. That's what fills my thoughts. I plan to continue showing my gratitude to Grandma. Grandma, let's keep it going. Hey, thanks for watching our kiddo for a week. I'll be picking him up today. What are you talking about? We weren't home. Wait, what? The voice on the other end of the line clearly belongs to a rattled sister-in-law. So, where is my son right now? My name's Sophia, a 34-year-old stay-at-home mom. I've been married to John for 4 years. We moved in with John's parents last year, sharing the home with them. The reason? John's dad, Matthew, has been having trouble with his legs, and his mom, Victoria, became his primary caregiver. We thought it'd be too much for Victoria to handle both housework and caregiving, so John and I offered to move in. At first, they were hesitant, but they eventually welcomed the idea. He thanked us for our proposal and said he would like to use it. John has a brother, James, who works for a global company and is currently abroad on business. That's why John, being the younger son, felt it was his responsibility to stay close to his parents and initiated the move. Living in my in-laws' house, I had no complaints about Victoria or Matthew. Sophia, your cooking is always so good. I can't do much housework because of taking care of Matthew, so it's really a lifesaver. Victoria was always thankful when I helped with chores. I'd never been mistreated, quite the opposite. Both Victoria and Matthew are incredibly kind, and living with them always left me feeling serene. I'd always known John to be a kind-hearted guy. It's no surprise, given how his parents are. I've always thought of John as a kind person, but I guess it's because he was raised by this parents-in-law that we have similar personalities. In that way, living together at in-laws' house was fun. But recently, tragedy struck. Matthew's health deteriorated, and he passed away at the hospital. It was heartbreaking. And Victoria and John were deeply affected. Soon after, we held Matthew's funeral. Matthew was a beloved figure, so many people attended the service. James came back from abroad to be there. John, Sophia, thank you for taking on so much responsibility. As the eldest son, I should have been the one to stay with Dad. Don't worry about it, bro. Your job overseas is important. That's right. I found happiness living with Matthew and Victoria. Thanks, both of you. I have to head back to my assignment, so please continue to look after Mom. James thanked us and left, clearly feeling bad that he couldn't be more involved. He seemed to feel sorry for not being able to get involved in household affairs. After Matthew's passing, we continued living with Victoria in her home. Not just because James asked us to, but because we were genuinely worried about Victoria, now alone. Victoria seemed deeply saddened ever since the funeral. Both John and I were cautious in our interactions with her. We didn't want to make her feel overwhelmed, so we carried on as usual, being attentive to her needs along the way. Gradually, Victoria started feeling better. Thanks, both of you. I'm okay now. Sorry for worrying you. Victoria said that, smiling warmly, just like before. Both John and I were glad to see Victoria back to her old self. From then on, the three of us lived peacefully as a family. However, there was someone who had recently become a nuisance. That was Olivia, my brother-in-law's wife. Hello! Looking forward to another great day! Oh, she's back again. Olivia frequently drops off her son Alexander with us. Alexander himself isn't a bad kid. In fact, he's quite well behaved. However, Olivia leaves her child with us without considering our plans. At first, we thought it might be a good distraction for Victoria, who had just lost Matthew. Seeing her grandchild would likely lift her spirits. And indeed, Victoria seemed happy spending time with Alexander. But it was becoming exhausting with how often Olivia was dropping him off. Apparently, Olivia works part-time on the weekends and can't take care of her son during that time. Alexander is only 5. He can't stay home alone. Victoria must be free now that she doesn't have to take care of Matthew anymore. That's what Olivia selfishly claimed. She wasn't wrong, but that didn't make it okay to impose her child on us. I wonder why she doesn't work during the weekdays when Alexander is at preschool. That way, she could pick him up after work. It's puzzling. Do you think my brother knows about this? I mean, if he's in a global company, does she even need to work this much? John and I had that conversation. When Alexander gets dropped off during the weekends, John can't relax after work. I also have a part-time job during weekdays, so I'd rather have a peaceful weekend with John and Victoria. Our plans get thrown off when Olivia suddenly shows up to drop off her child. Finally, John and I asked Olivia to minimize the frequency of her visits. We have our plans too, you know? It's troublesome when you keep leaving Alexander here. Oh, what plans could possibly be more important than my job? Olivia retorted defensively. John shot back. Why don't you consider working weekdays? Alexander is at preschool then, so there's no need to leave him here. This infuriated Olivia. How terrible. You people don't care about family at all. It's sad to have relatives like you, Olivia says, getting emotional. She screams so loudly that John and I were taken aback. Sophia, John, let it be. I enjoy spending time with my grandson, so it's no problem for me. Victoria stepped in to mediate. Good on you, Victoria. I knew you'd say that. Alexander seems fond of you, and it's better to leave him with someone we can trust. Although, John and Sophia, you've lost a bit of that trust with this. With a smug look on her face, Olivia made that comment. Ever since then, the frequency of her dropping off Alexander increased. Lately, she's even been bringing him over from preschool until the evening on weekdays. I was surprised to find Alexander at home when I returned from my part-time job. Sure, it's tough for her to look after the kid alone while James is away on a business trip, but she's definitely taking advantage of us. At this rate, we're practically taking care of Alexander half of the month. Once he's with us, we often end up feeding him lunch, snacks, and sometimes even dinner. And Olivia doesn't give us any money for food or anything. The burden keeps increasing on our end, and it didn't sit well with me. But Victoria accepts everything, so neither John nor I could say anything further. Amidst all this, an unexpected incident occurred. The weather had been scorching hot. The moment you step outside, you're dripping with sweat. Though we were all cautious, one day I came home from my part-time job to find Victoria had collapsed. We immediately called an ambulance, and they confirmed it was heat stroke. Luckily, she fell just before I got home, so she was alright, but she had to be hospitalized for some time. I got so focused on housework, I didn't realize I was overheating. I'm really sorry for worrying you. It's okay, Mom. Thankfully, you're safe now. John and I were chatting with Victoria in her hospital room. We were relieved, but we had planned a family trip, set to depart the day after tomorrow. If Mom's in the hospital, the trip's going to be a problem. Yeah, we'll need to cancel. As we were discussing this, Victoria had a suggestion. Why don't you two go ahead without me? But Mom, we're worried about you. Right, we can't just leave you behind and go. Victoria insisted. You two always help me out, so now's the time to have some alone time as a couple. I'll be fine, I'm in a hospital after all. Feeling encouraged, we decided to proceed with the trip. It's a waste to have to pay the cancellation fee for 3 people. If I'm the only one who doesn't want to go, maybe I can change it without having to pay anything. After being encouraged so much, we decided to go on a trip as well. John is also on summer vacation, so we decided to go on a trip as planned. John and I got into the car early in the morning on the day of the trip and headed for our Ocean View hotel. We were so excited for a trip as a couple after so long. We even stopped at various shops on the way and had a good time. We found some knickknacks that Victoria would like in a chic boutique. As we were thinking about grabbing some lunch at a cafe, my phone rang. It was Olivia. Sophia? Why aren't you answering your phone? Huh? I called an hour ago and even sent messages. Oh, sorry. We're out at the moment. Must be nice, going out while I'm working. Huh? And so, the usual passive-aggressive comments began. So there I was, thinking everything was fine, when Olivia dropped a bombshell. Look, I left Alexander by the front door. Take him inside and look after him, would ya? What? Alright, you handle the rest. Wait, hold on a sec. Before I could say anything more, she hung up the phone. I tried to call her back several times, but it seemed she had turned off her phone, probably annoyed with my constant calling. I immediately consulted with John. Even though it wasn't that hot today, it's still summer. Leaving someone outside for hours could lead to heat stroke. And seriously, who leaves a 5-year-old alone outside? Problem was, John and I were already far from home, as we'd left early in the morning. Seeing me panic, John calmly said, "Relax, let's think this through. I'll call bro, he's probably off work today." With that, John called James. Fortunately, James picked up quickly, and John explained the situation. James was shocked and gave us the contact number for Olivia's parents right away. John then called Olivia's parents, explained the situation, and they agreed to pick up Alexander. Turns out it was a blessing in disguise. Olivia's parents lived only about an hour's drive from us, so they could pick up Alexander without much trouble. Apparently, Alexander was sitting in the shade, looking distressed. Olivia's parents quickly gave him some water and took him to their house. He was safe for now. John and I felt relieved and went on to enjoy our trip. But man, Olivia is one exhausting person. We agreed that we needed to give her a piece of our minds. But what happened next was beyond what we could have expected. About a week later, Olivia called me. "Hey, thanks for watching Alexander for a week. I'll pick him up today." She spoke as if she'd done nothing wrong. "What are you talking about?" "What do you mean, what? Got heat stroke and lost your mind? I said I'm coming to pick up Alexander." "We weren't even home." "What?" "We were out of state when you said you left Alexander at our doorstep. Couldn't come back." Olivia was clearly shaken over the phone. "Then where's Alexander?" "He's at your parents' place." "At my parents'?" "Yes, they've been watching over him." "No way!" With that, Olivia abruptly hung up, most likely headed to her parents' place. About an hour later, Olivia showed up. "Where's Alexander? Huh?" The moment she entered the living room, she was speechless. That's to be expected, because there we all were. Olivia's parents, us, Victoria, and even James. Why is everyone here? Olivia seems confused. Then Olivia's parents spoke up. "You really are beyond help." "Mom? What's going on all of a sudden?" "Word is, you've been dropping off Alexander at James's parents way too often, haven't you?" "Well, I've been busy with work, so it's just on weekends." "That's no excuse. Dropping him off every single weekend?" "I also heard from James's mother that you've been leaving him there on weekdays, too." Olivia's mother and father were confronting her like this. Feeling cornered by her own parents, Olivia defended herself. "I'm working, you know. It's okay for me to get a little support. Victoria and John are free anyway." James then chimed in to counter Olivia's justification. "I've been transferring you enough money, haven't I? You even said you needed more, so now I'm sending you $3,000 a month for living expenses, and you're saying that's not enough?" "Yes, that's right. $3,000 is not enough." Olivia was becoming increasingly defiant. Any reasonable person would think you could live quite comfortably with $3,000 a month for living expenses when it's just you and a small child. That's when Victoria sighed. "Olivia, why don't you just stop lying?" "What? I'm not lying." "You're not really working, are you?" Stunned, Olivia's eyes widened at Victoria's words. "I am working!" "Then please, tell us where you're working." Under Victoria's scrutiny, Olivia started to panic. Victoria then pulled out an envelope and spread its contents on the table. "I hate to say this in front of your parents, but I've had my suspicions about you, so I had an investigation done." "What?" "It turns out you've been having an affair. You met him often on the weekends you left Alexander with us, even on weekdays when you could manage the time." Victoria began laying out photos as proof of the affair. "Stop! Don't display those pictures like that!" Frantic, Olivia tried to hide the pictures. "What you've done is a betrayal to all of us. James, who's been working hard on business trips. Sophia and John, who's been caring for Alexander. And most of all, you've betrayed Alexander." It seemed Olivia finally realized the gravity of her actions. Olivia finally broke down and apologized deeply in front of us. "I'm really sorry. Can you find it in your hearts to forgive me?" Olivia kept apologizing, but some things can't be fixed that easily. James walked up to Olivia and handed her a piece of paper. "These are divorce papers. Let's end our relationship." "What? I don't want a divorce." Shouldn't have had an affair, then. James is right. I'm ashamed to say you're my daughter. Stop causing trouble and just agree to the divorce. No way! No one in the room was on Olivia's side. Eventually, Olivia signed the divorce papers, sealing the end of her marriage with James. James was granted custody of their child. He spoke to his company about the situation and decided to return to the US sooner than planned. Although this cost him a potential promotion, James said, "Life with Alexander is more important." And they're now living together in an apartment near our family home. As for Olivia, she's been sued for alimony by James and her affair partner. She was also disowned by her parents and is working desperately to pay off her monthly installments. Olivia had wanted to see Alexander, but Alexander himself refused. Apparently, Olivia was too absorbed in her phone to take care of him and often neglected his basic needs. Who would want to be involved with someone like that? Turns out, Olivia's affair partner was also married, and now his wife is suing her as well. Even worse, he decided not to divorce, leaving Olivia with massive debts and losing everything: her child, James, and her parents. From now on, she'll live a lonely life, with most of her earnings going toward alimony payments, but she brought it all on herself. It's the punishment she deserves for her betrayal. Meanwhile, John and I are living happily with Victoria. And since Alexander and James live nearby, we regularly go out for meals or have barbecues in our in-laws' backyard, enjoying quality family time. I plan to continue cherishing this family I love so much and live out my days in happiness.
Now your inheritance is all mine. I'm glad it happened sooner than I thought. Well, take it easy in heaven.
Sister-in-law Linda boldly said this in front of my critically ill mother-in-law, Susan. Is she even human? As Linda leaves the room with a mocking smile, Susan, who had been bedridden, suddenly sits up, smiling. What? Susan? How? Yep, just as I thought. Linda was after my inheritance. Now, I've got a lot to do. My name is Karen, a 34-year-old housewife. I've been married to my husband Robert for 4 years. We were colleagues at the same workplace. As we worked through various tasks together, we grew closer and started dating. After 1.5 years, he proposed. I want you to walk through life with me forever. Will you marry me? Yes, I would love to. But after we decided to get married, Robert told me something I never expected. I want you to quit your job once we married. Do you mean you want me to be a housewife? Yeah, I'd like you to focus on household chores. Okay. Honestly, I wanted to continue working a little longer, but I also wanted to make our married life a priority. So I decided to quit my job and become a housewife. But then Robert shocked me even more. I want us to live with my parents after we get married. What? You mean move in with them? Yes, he wanted us to live with his parents. Wait a minute, you mean spend our newlywed life with your parents? I couldn't believe what Robert was saying. They're getting up in years. I want to support them. His idea was filial, but these were his parents, not mine. And we hadn't even met them yet. There's no way I could decide on living with them at this point. Can I think about it? What? We're getting married, right? Then you should be okay with this. But Robert was more forceful than I thought. But if I gave in now, I'd always be under his thumb. I can't agree to move in without meeting your parents first. Let me at least meet them and see if it will work. Finally, Robert reluctantly agreed. So we went to announce our engagement to both sets of parents. I was super nervous to meet his parents. Parents who force children to live together even before marriage. They could be difficult people, even potentially harassing us. With these worries, I arrived at their house with Robert. But his parents welcomed us warmly. Thank you for coming. We never thought Robert would marry someone so beautiful. They were all smiles and so kind that I was taken aback. Then I decided to ask the question. Robert mentioned that he wants us to live with you, right? After getting married? Is that true? Huh? Live together? Even when I brought up the idea of living together, my in-laws looked puzzled. What are you talking about? I was taken aback and looked at Robert. He chuckled. I just spontaneously suggested to Karen that we should all live together. What does he mean, spontaneously? But you know, Mom and Dad are getting older. I think we should consider living together. We appreciate the concern, but you two are newlyweds. Shouldn't you enjoy that phase alone? Exactly. We're still spry. The first years of marriage should be spent with just the two of you. Rather than agreeing with Robert, my in-laws opposed the idea. Robert looked flustered, probably not expecting opposition from his own parents. Well, I was just concerned. If you guys don't want to, I won't push it. So we didn't end up living together right away after getting married. Though I never quite understood why my husband was so insistent on living with his parents. It was comforting to know that they are genuinely nice people. I even thought living with them wouldn't be a bad idea. That time came 2 years after our marriage, when Joseph passed away due to illness. Now that Susan would be living alone, Robert suggested we moved in. I worry about leaving Mom alone. But I'm still fine and I don't want to be a burden. This time, I sided with my husband. We don't consider it a burden. I'm worried about you too, Susan. Please, don't hesitate to lean on us. Is that so? Thank you, both of you. Susan seemed pleased and a little emotional. Losing her beloved Joseph must have been devastating. She agreed to move in, and we canceled our rental and moved into the family home. Life there was peaceful. During the day, it was just Susan and me, and she was incredibly kind, teaching me various things. Susan and I became close, even going to cafes together. Karen, you're such a kind-hearted and honest person. Wasn't Robert like that as a kid? Not just Robert, but Linda too. Linda is my sister-in-law, who is already married and rarely visits the family home. The first time I met Linda was at our wedding, and the next time was at Joseph's funeral. Even when Robert and I would visit for Christmas or family gatherings, Linda's family never showed up. When it comes to us, Linda's always been rebellious. It's a bit sad, but I can't force her to visit. Susan looked sad when talking about Linda. It seemed like my in-laws had always struggled with parenting. Given Robert's spontaneous behavior, he probably gave them a hard time too. That's why I'm so glad that someone as wonderful as you became Robert's wife. Susan. I adored Susan. I thought of her like my real mom and couldn't understand why Linda would resent such a wonderful woman. Sometimes, even in the closest of families, boundaries are crossed and tempers flare. I can't really intervene, it's not my place to do so. I focus on keeping a good relationship with Susan. Then, we hit a bump in the road. Susan fell while riding her bike and broke her arm. We have been sharing housework duties, but now I had to take on all the chores until she recovered. That would have been fine, but some tasks required 2 hands. I couldn't handle them alone. Susan, with her arm in a cast, was struggling too. So I asked my husband if he could help Susan a little. He responded with an obviously annoyed face. I'm tired from work, But Susan has a broken arm and is in a cast. It's tough for her, right? What a hustle. I was disgusted by my husband's attitude. Why couldn't he help his own mother? Turns out, his eagerness for us to live with his mom was just a way to show off how filial he was at his workplace. I've seen him bragging to his old colleagues about how he takes good care of his parents and how much he loves his wife. The reality? He leaves all the housework and communication with Susan to me. While he enjoys a king-like status, sure, he's the breadwinner. But that's no excuse for not being more helpful around the house. I was growing increasingly frustrated with him. 3 months passed, and Susan's arm fully healed.
Susan, it's great to see you better.
Karen, I'm sorry for all the trouble.
Don't worry about it. We're family.
You're such a kind person, Karen. Unlike Robert. Feel free to dump him anytime.
I'm not gonna dump him.
I just want you to be happy, Karen. Those were Susan's kind words to me. Just as I was relieved about Susan's recovery, Linda, my sister-in-law, suddenly showed up.
Linda, what brings you here so unexpectedly? It's rare for you to visit. I miss you, Mom, and wanted to see you.
Huh?
I heard you broke your arm, so I was worried. But it looks like you're fine now,
Linda said shyly. Susan seemed shocked to hear Linda's unexpected kind words.
Hey, react, will you? Makes me look stupid for saying something nice.
Sorry, I was just surprised and touched at the same time. Susan was delighted.
Do you like pound cake, Linda? Want to join us? Sure, why not?
Seeing Susan so happy made my day, and I thought, let's enjoy this moment. At first, Linda seemed a bit tense, but she gradually relaxed and was having a good chat with Susan.
I'm sorry we haven't been able to show you our grandkids. Next time, I'll bring my husband and kids for a visit.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. After that, Linda started visiting Susan regularly on her days off, bringing her husband Thomas and their kids. The first time she spoke with Thomas, he seemed like a great guy, and their nephews were lovely as well. Susan looked thrilled to be spending time with her grandchildren. It had taken some time, but Linda and Susan were finally getting along, and that was a good thing. However, for some reason, Linda's husband didn't seem to like the idea of Linda and Susan getting along. You know, Linda's been coming over a lot lately.
Is that a problem?
We're the ones living with my mom, you know. It's not fair for you to just swoop in and get all chummy with her. I didn't quite get what my husband was saying. What I mean is, I'm worried that Linda might end up inheriting more than us.
What?
Don't you get it? Linda is just trying to win my mom over. It makes her living here pointless.
I don't understand what you're saying.
I couldn't believe what my husband was saying. It turns out he was planning to inherit more from Susan by living with her. I was utterly disappointed in him. He never really cared for Susan from the start. Selfish, to say the least. Susan would be heartbroken to find out her son was thinking this way. Then, an unexpected event happened. I had to stay at my parents' house for some business the previous day. As I was about to head back, my husband suddenly called. What on earth is it for? I didn't really want to talk to him, but I picked up because the phone kept ringing.
Hello?
My mom collapsed and was taken to the hospital.
What?
I was genuinely shocked and immediately headed to the hospital. It was an extremely hot day, and it seemed that Susan had suffered from heat stroke while weeding the garden. A neighbor found her and called an ambulance. My husband couldn't come right away because of work and had asked me to go instead. How selfish and irresponsible of him. Anyone would drop everything to be there. When I got to the hospital, Susan was asleep in her bed. According to the doctor, she was in a critical condition. Shortly after I arrived, Linda also showed up.
Is it true that Mom collapsed?
Yes, she's in a very critical condition now. As I said that, Linda gave a creepy laugh and then stood in front of Susan saying,
With this, all of your inheritance will be mine.
What?
I'm glad this is happening sooner than I thought. Take your time in heaven.
Linda said this right in front of Susan, who was in critical condition.
Whoa, Linda, are you actually saying that? What's your deal? Are you eyeing the inheritance too?
No way. Why would I?
I don't know about that. Ever since I heard Robert moved back in with his parents, it made me wonder, are you guys after that spacious family house?
I told you, we're not.
Come on, just be real for once. There's no point being chummy with your mother-in-law when there's nothing in it for you.
Is she even human?
Well, just so you know, I'll be the one getting the inheritance, huh?
With that, Linda left the room laughing. As soon as she stepped out, Susan, who had been bedridden, sat up with a smile. I was so shocked. I thought my heart would stop. What, Susan? What's happening?
I knew she was after my money.
Susan, are you okay?
Yeah, it was just heat exhaustion.
But the doctor said it was critical.
I had them say that actually.
What?
I wanted to see if my children really cared for me or not. I had a hunch, but I wanted to be sure.
Susan?
So we have a lot to do, Karen. Can you help me?
Huh? Susan was discharged soon after and started making plans. Plans that could be called nothing short of retribution against Linda and my husband. 1 month later, Susan gathered everyone in the living room.
Thank you all for coming. Mom, what's this all about?
It must be important if you're calling us all here. Linda and my husband seemed a bit annoyed. Probably because Susan had been quickly discharged for mere heat exhaustion. Susan began discussing her plans for her estate.
After my recent incident, I did some thinking about inheritance.
As she said this, Linda and my husband perked up.
So who's getting what?
I assume this house will go to me, right? I was disgusted by their blatant greed. Susan ignored them and continued talking.
I've decided to sell the house.
What? Their faces froze. Whoa, what does that mean?
Why would you sell? If you're selling, just give it to us.
No way. We've lived in this house. It should go to me.
You two are always thinking of yourselves. Even when I collapse, or at any other time, all you ever thought about was how to get more from me. I know everything.
Both Linda and my husband went pale.
That's why I'm leaving you nothing.
What?
What? I'll sell the house and use that money and my pension to live in a nursing home. When I pass away, I'll donate everything I have. You can't be serious.
What a waste!
I've had enough of you all taking advantage of me. You think parents can just keep loving unconditionally while you use them? Forget about the inheritance and start thinking about fending for yourselves.
What the?
I was counting on that inheritance for my life plan.
Linda and my husband collapsed to their knees. But it's not just Susan who's done with them. Linda, I can't stand your selfishness anymore. I want a divorce.
Wait a minute. Why are you abandoning me too?
Do you think I want to spend my life with someone who's happy to hear Susan is critically ill? It's not good for a child's upbringing. I'll take custody. Let's handle the rest through lawyers.
What the?
Thomas decides to divorce Linda. Then, my husband oddly chimes in.
Well, Thomas, do you think that's a bit harsh? She may be a hopeless case, but divorce is a bit much, don't you think?
His tone carries a mocking undertone towards Linda. This man doesn't understand his own standing.
You think you're not getting a divorce?
What?
I can't continue this marriage with you.
Whoa, hold on. Karen, why are you saying that?
I've been disillusioned by you throughout our marriage. This is the last straw. I'm definitely divorcing you.
What?
I grab my pre-packed bag, say goodbye only to Susan, and head back to my parents' home. Later, through a lawyer, I demand a divorce from my husband. Faced with a legal battle, he reluctantly agrees. It seems Linda and her husband ended up divorcing in a similar fashion. By the way, I still keep in touch with Susan. Amazingly, as a token of gratitude for my good relationship and housekeeping, Susan bought me an apartment to live in. Thanks to that, my life is quite comfortable. I've also managed to find a new job, so I'll be saving up more. Susan is in a high-end nursing home, living her best life and even making friends. When I visit her once in a while, she always happily talks about her daily life. Robert, however, rented an apartment alone, and his life is falling apart. His home is a mess. He's mentally unstable, and he's run through his savings recklessly, counting on the inheritance. No woman would want to be with a man with such a history. Plus, he let himself go during his marriage and looks terrible now. For the world's sake, it's better if he stays single. As for Linda, she tried to live off various men and got caught by a marriage scammer, losing all her divorce settlement money. She messaged me for help, but when I ignored her, the messages stopped. I don't know what they're up to, but I doubt it's anything good. I'm forgetting about them, and I'll focus on enriching my life from now on.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.